Hello, hello. This is the 153rd Test from the Future, an experimental podcast from the year 2224, which we are sending from our present to yours. My name is Dirk.
And my name is Simon.
And we're putting the past in podcast. Today, we start off this episode with a most exciting novelty.
Yeah, our audio recorder here just got a massive system update, so now it can translate.
Yes, and this is a rather useful enhancement, I must say. It means that I can now revert back to my mother tongue, Dutch. I leave it to our trusty recorder to render my somewhat lacking natural speech patterns into a most delightful audio package. No more stumbling over words anymore, good sir. Oh no.
No. And to me, it's pretty nice actually, to hear you speaking in your native Dutch, because obviously it's translated for me in my Oorjones. And actually, I think we've mentioned this before. It's a bit strange in the episodes where you need to speak in English, and so then you're sounding less fluent to me compared to all the rest of our life.
True.
Yes.
With that out of the way, let's introduce our dear listeners to the topic of today. Will you do the honors?
Today we are going to be talking about deprecated technology. And so these are things, many of these are things that were speculated about in the 21st century. And many of those have come to pass, have happened between then and now. And some have stuck around, gone on to be very successful. Others haven't at all. So we'll be talking about all those ones that are in the graveyard.
Yes. And for those of you committed to listening to every single episode we've ever produced, you may fondly remember episode 51, where we discussed holograms. En in die aflevering hebben we uitgebreid stilgestaan bij die technologie.
In the box of old tech episodes, there was, for example, the communicator and the laser gun.
Yeah. And we've occasionally ventured in the infamous field of gambling, because we de Bennomats aangesproken hebben. En die horen ondertussen ook tot de verouderde technologie wat mij betreft.
True. What else?
Smart nails?
Smart nails, indeed. Yeah, just looking at our list here. Right, that was the thing where on a person's fingernails, like that was another, I guess, body part that could be used as a display, both a display and an input device. So, you could get information on your nails, especially helpful for, you just want to, I'm doing this stuff here physically, people can't see it, but, it's a thing guys can do where they look at their nails, and the way they look at their nails is they kind of make a little paw, curl their fingers inwards. And, maybe you're just looking at it, just rubbing your fingers together, but actually now you can get information on there.
Yeah.
What kind of information? Up to you, totally customizable. But then also for input, tapping your fingers on the desktop like this, that kind of thing. Right, with them being smart nails, that could actually be input into them as well.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that was the idea of it all. Didn't really go anywhere.
No.
It wasn't very practical. The output stuff was nice. It was especially nice if you just wanted to color your nails. You mentioned, I think, a few weeks ago, painting your nails.
Yes.
Different colors. And of course, with this, you can have them changing dynamically throughout the day. Or you could also just do it once a day, but, throughout the day you could do it, which is pretty nice. But right, beyond that, it wasn't so practical. Emojis did look cool on there, but again, not so practical.
Ik moet zeggen, mijn snails liggen nog steeds op zolder. En daar liggen ze al jaren. En waarom brandt dat rode lampje eigenlijk?
I'm not sure. Let me just have a look. There's a message here. It says translation malfunction.
Oh.
It's not great.
You reckon I should better speak?
Maybe. Like, we don't want to interrupt the recording now. But
okay.
if you don't mind, you speak English now and we'll check later what's going on.
Yeah, okay. Just in case. Okay, I will.
It would be bad to have a whole episode where our listeners can only hear you speaking in. I mean, it'd be great for the listeners who can understand Dutch, but for the ones who can't.
Yeah, just in case. It says translated because I've noticed it now for the third time that this light.
That light was on.
Exactly, but it only was on when I'm speaking and not when you're speaking. Yeah, so I'm not sure if it translated me properly.
We'll find out later when we finish the recording, because hopefully it's saying malfunction. Hopefully that doesn't mean it just muted your audio entirely.
Oh yeah,
that would be bad.
Would be bad.
We'll find out.
Okay, then let's revert back to English just in case. But yeah, so my snails are. I still have them. They're in the attic. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're they're nice to put on occasionally, but definitely not part of daily life.
You remember the Surfinator?
I do. That was for flattening waves in the sea, yeah?
Yes.
So you went swimming and the waves are just crazy, too much, but you still want to swim. It takes care of that.
Yeah, and it kind of did that. But the problem is it was super heavy.
Yeah,
right?
Like to carry you.
I mean, it makes sense if you're flattening waves. You can't just do that with a tiny device.
No.
So it did kind of work, but it was so heavy that you couldn't really swim with the thing.
True. Even in salt water, which has a bit more buoyancy, but yeah, this was too heavy to pull along, which is why some people would attach them to their surfboards with the idea of making, like basically sending them to reverse, making huge tubular waves for them to surf through, And okay, a surfboard could carry a bit more weight, a bit more easily, but still, some people fit rockets then to air surfboards, and then it worked out, that provided enough thrust. But okay, then the secondary issue was that making these nice waves for yourself was great for yourself, but messed up the sea for everyone else who was also trying to surf. So it was very antisocial.
Yeah, I think the Surfinator is a good example of a piece of technology that initially everybody has it because it's new and cool, and wow, you go in the water without a Surfinator, that's weird, And then, but after a while, you find out, was this just hype, or is this let's say a new standard? And the Surfinator definitely was a hype. I don't know anybody who uses a Surfinator anymore.
No. I mean, it started off with bans, no closer than 1 kilometer, no closer than 5, no closer than 10, 20 kilometers from the beach, for example. And at some point, no one can be bothered with that anymore.
So the things being so heavy, and you have to swim so far out to actually use it. It makes no sense.
Another one was hover beds.
Yeah. That's one. I was trying to remember. We spoke about a few things.
Yeah. And this one, again, I mean, everything, of course, is marketed in a way. I mean, it needs to be, especially when it's a new idea, get people on board. And the tagline for this was like sleeping on air, because your bed isn't attached to the floor; it's literally floating.
I mean, that worked for me. That tagline was really good.
Yeah, it was wonderful. But somehow, unlike tables and chairs, which the floating ones, I mean, which tend to stay put, floating beds, or hover beds rather, would drift away during the night. So, you'd go to bed at one part of your bedroom, you wake up, somehow your bed's wedged in the corner.
Because I used to have one, I would wake up outside of my apartment.
Well, now that's next level. Yeah, sure, when your doors or windows are wide enough. Yeah.
Especially the doors to my balcony, especially in the summer, I had them open. I mean, I used to have them open. Now with the farm animals, the farmies, often on my balcony, I keep them closed. But I'm not sure how that works, because first I thought it was movement.
Right, because when you're sleeping, you roll around a bit or whatever.
But for my couch, that's no problem. You also move around on your couch, it still stays put. I think because while you're asleep, you're kind of like unconscious. So you're basically not present. So your presence is no longer influencing or making sure the bed stays in one place.
But it was a strange oversight, because like I mentioned, so sofas, as you just mentioned, tables, chairs, all these other floating furniture didn't have this problem.
And also, what I understood, the beds only had that problem while there was somebody sleeping in it.
Yeah, you went on holiday, came back a few weeks later, you have a bed still in exactly the same spot. Yeah,
but when you're sleeping in it, it just floated away.
Exactly, but you want to be able to sleep on a bed, so...
Yes. So...
they are gone now.
And this is... they just couldn't do it right. At one point, the whole idea of hover beds was kind of spoiled. People just didn't want them anymore.
Exactly. Too many people wanted to return them, so the main manufacturer went out of business, and then, that's the end of that.
And there's, in some cases... things like with the Surfinator, nobody really needed that, and it wasn't very practical. In this case, people loved it, just didn't work.
Yeah, right. It was great. You didn't, when you wanted to vacuum clean under the bed, there were no legs in the way. It was really nice. So people wanted it, but didn't work.
I think you remember the private rockets?
Mm-hmm.
This was something where it did work properly.
Sure.
And everybody wanted them.
Mm-hmm. And when everybody had them, it was a bit of a problem. And it didn't get to that level, but exactly above a certain density in a city of people having private rockets, having takeoffs every day. It was a bit too much pollution, noise, damage. Shockwaves.
And also because they were just used for fun, essentially. Because getting somewhere fast, you would take a teleporter.
Of course.
Obviously. And the private rockets didn't go into space. So for going into space, you still needed a shuttle. And you want to go somewhere nice with a view, you take a car, which is nice and quiet.
Yeah.
And the rockets were just to go just in a random direction with a lot of noise.
Yeah, a whole lot of noise, a whole lot of smoke.
And it was just for fun. It's just like the adrenaline. But of course, it was going everywhere, uncontrollable. And a lot of them, and especially with all the hover devices up in the air, hover bikes, hover cars, that was chaos.
Yeah.
So they stopped that really, really quickly, which was a shame. I used mine a few times, just the adrenaline.
Sure.
But I went out of
the G-forces, making your face go all mushy, like stretched backwards as you blasted you forwards.
But I went into the countryside, just, I guess, being responsible.
Yeah. Not exploding or shattering everyone's windows with the blast.
And initially they tried to do it with guidelines, all kinds of guidelines. You can only use your rocket under these conditions, and nobody really was following them. And then they said, okay, no more rockets.
Yeah. So they are no longer, the private ones are no longer a thing.
Yeah.
What was that? The next one on our list, AIG, so artificial intelligence graves. And that was a thing where, so when someone died, that their grave stone, I guess, would have a hologram of that person from when they were alive, encoded, a bit like with the replicants we did the other day, but a much earlier form of that. And, they'd have some pre-recorded greetings or things to say to people who would come visit them.
Yeah.
And, but then at some point, graveyards were full of these.
Yeah.
And what happened was the AIs that were in theory only meant to speak to the people who would come to visit the grave, well, they got speaking with each other.
Yeah.
And it turned out, hey, it's pretty fun to chat, and, they're dead. So the people are dead, but the AIs, they have no more the limitations of the flesh. So don't get hungry, don't get tired. So they can just stay up talking all night.
And they became also more and more fancy. So they could inherit more and more of their, ancestor, predecessor. I'm not sure how that works.
Person they're representing.
Exactly. So they were more and more like the actual person, which of course was kind of what was wanted. But the more intelligent they became, the more they started interacting with each other.
Yeah. Built up their own communities.
Exactly. And then you come to a graveyard at night and you see all kinds of holograms chatting to each other.
Yeah, having dance parties, grilling holographic barbecue.
And it's just visiting a graveyard at night just wasn't the same anymore.
No. Well, you couldn't go there being all goth and vampire-y.
It felt just very
too much like a
suddenly. So suddenly there's all kinds of chatting going on and just you felt kind of like uneasy.
Yeah, out of place.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then they said, no. No
more of those, yeah.
Exactly. So now the graveyards at night are back to their old gloomy self.
Exactly. Quiet. Spooky.
But it's the thing with artificial intelligence. There's quite a few places where they injected artificial intelligence where then in the end it didn't really work out because of us humans, not so much because artificial intelligence didn't work.
Right, such as, so we'll just say AI from now on, AI musical instruments.
Yeah.
Which were initially intended to aid musicians, like help them out, especially when learning, but then also in performances, which would, once they came along, more and more music was written that couldn't actually be performed by an unaided human. It required an AI instrument. But then, human musicians, they felt like their job was being taken over by the AI ones.
Exactly. And then like more and more band members were AI, and then AI was much better at an AI instrument was way better usually because it wasn't making any mistakes and could do all kinds of fancy things, and the humans in the band just started feeling insignificant. And the other hand, the instruments started feeling underappreciated because the rights and the name and so on were still with the humans.
Yeah, they weren't getting the recognition or the appreciation they felt they deserved.
And then there was just a bit of separation slowly growing between the humans and the AI instruments. And then, in the end, I guess they both mutually decided all over the world. Okay, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
AI instruments.
And right, so the AI graves, the AI instruments, when we say they're no longer around, I mean, they're no longer around as graves. They're no longer around as instruments in orchestras. They're obviously still around.
Yeah,
exactly. Like the AIs that had been like limited, like they were only meant to stay in the graveyard. Well, no, they can just be regular AIs, can go wherever they like.
Yep.
Same deal with the AI instruments. Can also have themselves put in new bodies if they don't want to just be a piano, for example.
Exactly. And there's a trombone in Skyline Park here in Frankfurt that plays most weekends.
Yeah.
You just pass by and just plays all kinds of cool music. So they're still around, just not more as like
relics from the past rather than new ones being made.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good description. Yeah, and also when we're saying they're not around, like they're still around. Just sometimes when they're not intelligent, then they're around, but usually they spend their time in attics, like the snails, for example.
Sure. Yeah, hanging out up there with the spider webs and stuff.
I was on my attic the other day. I mean, not on purpose, because we were gonna do this episode about deprecated technology. I found my old Congo, and this still had the cologne setting. Remember that?
Oh yeah. Right. So obviously the one I'm borrowing at the moment doesn't have that. It's too old, predates that.
Okay.
And then the one I had before that was too new, so it didn't have that. But right, the model in your attic is just from that brief window where there was Congo cologne.
Yeah, exactly. So the Congo is just a food conglomerator, so it produces all kinds of food that we eat. And for a while, this also produced a cologne with food smells. So you could smell like pizza bolognese.
Yeah, well, I think that was where. So fresh bread was, I think, one of the original smells. That's a nice smell, like you've just been baking, or maybe a hint of vanilla or chocolate or something like
cinnamon orange.
Yeah, stuff like that. That's where it was okay, but then it very quickly got over the top.
Yeah,
really strong smells like gorgonzola cheese, bolognese, like you just mentioned. People who loved garlic would be like, hey, I'm just going to smell of garlic all the time. And
also just have it randomized. It's like with food that's already a bit risky, but with smells.
Yeah.
And then I remember we even had a Congo cologne party where you had to guess the ingredients by smelling somebody. Yeah, that was weird. But I think this was also because it wasn't like...
Well, the issue is one person smelling strangely, maybe it's pretty fun. You have a full group, a large group of people smelling that way, workplace, train, party, whatever. And unless everyone really coordinated well, which no one did, it would be really rank, the smell that would be produced.
Yeah, it was also a thing where initially it was a novelty, right? So it was fun and you could try out different things and so on. But once it became kind of like normal and you meet somebody and they smell like garlic or they smell like, gorgonzola cheese or pineapple, sage.
I mean, some people were, using their cyborg chips to reduce or even switch off their sense of smell.
Yeah.
And when you're getting that far, it's getting silly.
But it's also that, and this is the thing where like it worked and it still does. It's not used anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all kinds of different, I think we have quite a few different examples of things that worked out, but just weren't very practical or just didn't work really. Yeah. I hope that is, those were a few nice examples. I don't have anything else, and I will also want to find out what's going on with the translation mode.
Definitely, let's look into that. I mean, to double check it if you like when we say the wrap up now, maybe you speak in Dutch and we'll see what comes through.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Folk who've been listening to this episode, please send us an email at michaellasagna5@gmail.com. Put the number 153 into the subject. That way we'll know this episode went back in time successfully. And if you have any questions, put those in your email and we may answer them in a coming episode.
Oké. Bedankt voor het luisteren en tot over 200 jaar.
Bye bye.